Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Quinn, and I am the Testing Mom. And today we are going to do a primer on the NNAT test. So let's get started. I will share my screen. All right, so the NNAT test is a test that many schools use to qualify students for gifted programs. And it stands for the Naglieri Nonverbal Ability Test. Naglieri is the person who wrote the test originally. Let's look at what this test is like. Okay, so NNAT is a cognitive test. And what that means is it is assessing thinking and reasoning abilities. It's not assessing academic skills that kids learn in school, like math or reading comprehension, although these cognitive skills are the skills you need in order to do math and think your way through math problems or answer reading comprehension questions. It's sort of the skills behind the scores for the state test. So it's it's almost more like an IQ test, but it's given in a group at school. All of the questions are made from shapes and figures and designs. So there's no pictures, there's no words on the test. So anybody, no matter where you were brought up or what your background is, anybody should be able to solve these puzzles because it's all thinking skills and it's considered to be culturally neutral, because it has no pictures or no scenarios or words that kids have to understand in order to get the question right. There's 4 parts to the test: pattern completion, reasoning by analogy, serial reasoning, and spatial visualization. And I'll show you what they're all the different questions are like. Within spatial visualization, there's 2 different types of questions. And you might hear about NNAT 2 or NNAT 3. The NNAT 3 is the newer version of the test. And really the only difference is the old version uses 4 colors. The newer version uses 5 colors. So they've added a green color to the puzzles on top of the black, white, yellow, and blue colors that are in the puzzles. So it's essentially the same test from a test taker's point of view. Now, this chart kind of shows you the different levels that students take depending on what grade they're in. And one thing to know is that the younger kids will get more pattern completion and reasoning by analogy questions. The A, B, and C level kids will get more of these. They will get these as well, but the test will be heavier on the first 2 types of questions. Whereas older kids, there's going to be more serial reasoning and spatial visualization. Again, there will be the easier these pattern completion and analogy questions, but it will be heavily weighted towards the number 3 and 4 down here. That's the most types of questions you're going to get as kids get older. The test levels are grade specific, but they score the test based on your child's age. So if you have a younger or older child, they happen to be in 3rd grade, they're going to score it based on looking at your child's score versus kids of about the same age. For students who are age 4 to 9.11, they're going to be compared within a 1-month age group of other kids. So they'll all be born like within a month of each other in terms of age. And then older kids will be compared to students within a 3-month group related to their age. Okay, so in terms of administering this test, there's 48 questions. It can be given pencil to paper. It can be given on a computer. As I said before, it's usually administered in groups. And the way that it works is that the teacher gives the child a few examples to work through of each type of question. And he or she will make sure that the kids understand what they're to do with each type of question. And then they say, now you go ahead. And then the child works through all of the questions on their own. The test takes about 30 minutes. And the question is essentially the same for every question, which is what belongs in the empty box. But you get to what belongs doing different techniques depending on what kind of puzzle it is. And so here you can see that for younger kids, they might do it on the computer. They might use a consumable book, which means they're going to actually fill in bubbles in the book that has the questions. Whereas from 2nd to 4th grade students, they may use the computer, they may use the consumable book, or they may use the booklet plus a bubble sheet, which that way they can reuse the booklet. So the kids aren't marking in it. And then older students, of course, they're going to use either they can take it by computer or they would use a bubble sheet by 5th grade. And the score requirements to qualify for a gifted program, it's going to vary by school district. Every school district can set their own thresholds for what score is required in order to qualify for their program. That's up to them. So let's look at what's on the test, okay? The first 3 types of questions. The first question is pattern completion. And this is a picture, a design with a white box over it. And the question is, what belongs in the empty box to complete this pattern or design? And here A is the answer, that if it's almost like a puzzle piece. If we put that in right there, it would complete the design. And then reasoning by analogy, the way that works is the figures are whatever's happening across the top needs to happen across the bottom. So here we have a circle. It gets divided in half, blue on the left, white on the right. So here we want to divide this in half, blue on the left, white on the right. So here's our answer to make it analogous. And then with serial reasoning, what you have is a matrix and there's a pattern going on, or there could be rules that the figures need to follow. In this case, usually the patterns are, they go across the rows or they go up and down or both, or they might, there might be a pattern that moves across 9 boxes. That's another way that could work. In this case, what we have here is 3 different figures, 2 different colors, but just looking at it, you can tell that we need something blue right here. So we can immediately eliminate A and D. And we see that every figure across the row, up and down the column, is different. So in order to find one that's going to be different right here, we would put C as our answer, because that is the 3rd figure that's in this puzzle. All right, and now let's look at spatial visualization. And as I said, spatial visualization has 2 types of questions: combination questions and folding questions. With combination questions, whatever's in the first box is added to the second box to create the third box. So this plus this equals this. And now finally, this plus this, what does it equal? And it's going to look like B. Now they also give these combination questions that rotate. So here, this gets added to this, but then it rotates. And now this gets added to this and it rotates. And we can see by the second one, it's rotating counterclockwise. Here, it could have gone either way, but it is going counterclockwise. And when we put these 2 together and we make the same counterclockwise rotation, then B is going to be our answer. And then here with spatial visualization folding, what's happening here is that there's a square with some tabs sticking out. And we fold them in here, and this is what it looks like when they're folded in. So the question is, if you fold this row in the same way this one was folded, what will it look like? It will look like A. And here they also have rotations. So this one is an example of a rotation. So if we fold that in and then it rotates clockwise here. So here, if we fold these in and rotate clockwise, D is going to be our answer. Now, I want to give you some tips if you're working with your child on pattern completion puzzles, how to help them learn how to do these. So what I recommend doing is tell them that this is kind of like a card, that a white card that goes on top of the design, but you have to kind of imagine that you can see through it. And you have to imagine what's happening underneath. Well, okay, I can see a lot of red, a lot of green stripe, and some orange. And you can see that that is the answer, of course, and here it is right here. B is our answer. So just imagine it that way, that it's covering it up and what's happening underneath. Now, another thing you can do, and we do this when we're tutoring with a lot of our questions, we cover up the answer choices. And we do that so the child can figure out and talk about, well, what are they going to be looking for? So here we're going to be looking for a big green diagonally sort of oriented stripe going down, and we're going to be looking for a big yellow stripe going down this way, and maybe a touch of blue and a touch of purple. And do I see that anywhere? And yes, I do see that. Here it is right here. C is our answer. So if you imagine it first and talk about what you're looking for and then see if you can find that answer, that's a good technique to teach how to work through these questions. Now, another thing you can do with this type of question is you can tell them to use their fingers and draw almost trace what they're going to be looking for. So for example, here you would trace this line to continue down, and there's going to be a lot of yellow in it. And I would trace this to go this way, and there's going to be green and purple in it. So let's see. That would be, B would be the answer. If you've traced it, you've sort of imagined it, this is what it's ultimately going to be. So that's another technique. Some people have asked, can you use a pencil and actually draw on the book? And I suppose if your child has one of those consumable books and they're able to put their answers in the consumable book, they could do that, but not everybody may be able to draw in their book. So I would teach the child to use their fingers unless you know they're going to be able to use the consumable book and have a pencil and draw on it. Okay, so what you want to know is that the questions go from super easy to much harder. And so it really helps to start with easier questions first and get a feel for the type of question and how to do it. But it does get much harder later. You know, there's a lot more detail in this. And, you know, when I would look at this, I would say, all right, well, I know it's going to have some blue here, and it's going to have some blue going across up here. So I might start by just looking for that. And I see it, you know, I see it here. I think that's probably the answer. Okay, so, but you know, it does get really hard when the designs are more complex. Okay, so what is a really good prep plan to follow? People ask this a lot, like, you know, when do I start working on it? How much do we practice? That kind of thing. And the answer is, you know, it really depends. How much time do you have before your child is going to be tested? If you have a very limited time, the one thing you want to make sure of is make sure your child goes in understanding what to do with each of the 4 question types. Now, if you have lots of time to get ready, then take your time and go very slowly and methodically and work your way through these problems, give your child lots of practice, that sort of thing. We always recommend that the first thing you do is assess your child's skills. You want to know which questions they can do easily, which questions are harder for them. If you're just using our website, you can do maybe 2 or 3 of each type of question and just an easy, medium, and hard one, and just see how they do, and then you'll know where to focus. Or you can we have tutors, they can assess your child for you and tell you what to do, or they can work with your child, whatever you want. But find out first what their strengths are. And the reason that I think that's really important is that, the first thing we're going to do is we like to shore up a child's weaknesses, because with cognitive questions, often when they first see them, they're really hard for the kids because it's not what they're doing in school every day. They're not used to them. So at first they may not do very well, but if they practice with it, what we see is that practice, it's like a light bulb sometimes just goes off, and then suddenly they're like, oh, I get it. Now I know what I'm doing. So it takes a little while, but then they get it. And so that's why we want to work on those weaknesses, because that light bulb may go off and suddenly your child will be able to do those types of questions much more easily. And then, of course, still work on the ones that they do well, because you want to maximize their score. We also recommend mixing up the practice tools you use. You don't want to just do question after question after question like in a workbook. You want to practice a lot of questions, but mix it up. You could do practice questions that are on paper, do practice questions that are interactive, play games. Like we have a lot of games on our website that help kids prepare for tests, but it feels like fun to them. So do that. Use flashcards. That's another stimuli. You just want to mix up the stimuli, because that keeps kids interested and focused, that sort of thing. Another thing to do with cognitive questions, this is really important. Start with questions that are too easy for your child, and then work your way up to questions that are harder for them. And the reason is that cognitive questions build on themselves. So if you've worked with questions that are really easy and they get a little harder, your child learns lessons with the harder puzzles that they're able to then really apply to the much harder questions. So you want to start too easy, and also it gives kids confidence if they're able to answer the first questions they do. So that's important as well. So they have confidence, they know they can do it, and they're willing to try the harder ones, especially if they've practiced from super easy to much harder. And the other thing we always recommend is work on test taking skills. Many kids taking these tests for gifted programs have very little experience with tests. They make the same mistakes. All of them make the same mistakes just because they haven't taken tests before. So they may do things like they'll rush through the test, or they won't look at all the answers. They'll go to the first answer that seems right to them, and it may not be the right one. Or they don't know how to at least eliminate answers that are definitely wrong if they have to guess. So these are things you want to teach them. And when you log into our site, just go to our parent resources section, go to test taking skills younger and older, where we kind of lay out for you all of the most common mistakes children make when they're taking tests, and how you can gently correct them and get them on the right path to not making that mistake again. How about that? Okay, so how long should you practice every day? Again, it depends on how much time you have before the test. How motivated is your child? Are they enjoying it? The good thing about NNAT is the questions are like puzzles, so they're really kind of fun to do. So kids can really get into these NNAT puzzles, and it is something that they may spend a lot of time with it if they really get into it. But no matter what, just even if you do 10 to 15 minutes a day, that will make a difference. You just don't want them to go in not knowing what to do. And the more comfortable they are with the questions, the better. Now, lots of people want to know, well, do I manage my time? Do I try to, keep my child working at, 30 seconds a question? And the answer is no, not when you're first starting with your child. What you want to do is just make sure they understand how to do the different types of questions. So you practice for their skill in handling the questions. But as you get closer to the test, you might do some practice sessions where the focus is getting through the questions, at about 30, 35 seconds each. so that they do know when they take the test not to linger on a question that they get stuck on. You want them to try to move through efficiently and give the best answer they possibly can. So that's what you want to do, is just only when it gets closer do you focus on time. Now, where do you find the NNAT material on our website? I just want to show you, because I know many of you are TestingMom members, and if you're not, become one. Okay, so all you do when you log in, you go to Test Prep, View All Tests, and here's where you can pick out the NNAT right here, and that's where we have practice questions for that particular test. And when you open up the section, you're going to see a lot of materials. In the practice section part of the NNAT page, we have over 5,000 practice questions your child will be able to work with. And they start with literally pre-K all the way to 8th or even 9th grade level questions. And so you can start with those easier questions, like I was telling you, and work your way through to your child's grade, and then go past their grade level. And this is something that is very unique to TestingMom, in that we give you everything. You know, we give you every level of difficulty. If you buy workbooks, you're going to have to get it grade by grade. And so, you know, we just give you everything so you can really find your child's level and either help them start with easier ones, and then work their way past their own grade level. Okay, I think I've covered all that. All right. Okay, so the other thing that we have on the website is lots of games that your child can play. And they're there to teach your child the skills they need for the test. But also, when I was talking about mixing up your practice materials, you know, just doing question after question gets old. But if you play some of these games, it doesn't feel like they're prepping, but they're having fun and they're actually getting ready for the test. So there's actually a lot of NNAT games that we have. We have Analogy Galaxy, where there are nonverbal analogy questions. Under IQ Fun Tree, there's you can work in our visual spatial area that's perfect for the NNAT. In Digital Tutor, we have NNAT practice questions. These two games right here are games where they on a tablet, they can literally move the tiles up and see where it fits in a game format. It's actually fun for kids. And then we have this Pattern Tile Galaxy as well, that works on nonverbal reasoning skills. So all of these are games that are really helpful for the NNAT. Fun to play, keeps your child working and getting ready for the test, but in more fun ways. Another thing we give you is for the younger kids, pre-K to 2nd or 3rd grade, is you have our IQ Fun Pack board game questions, which we put up for you. You just go right to game, and you can go to NNAT and do practice questions there, or you can go to visual spatial reasoning and just do visual spatial reasoning questions, which are perfect for practice for NNAT. So again, it keeps it fun. There are flashcards you can get at Amazon. The spatial concept cards are great. And even if your child is past 2nd grade, let's say, but if this is something that's hard for them, go back. I always say, go back to the easier questions. Go back, and this kind of lays out all the different types of questions that there are. So even an older child can benefit from these flashcards that are geared to younger kids, but it's really more kids who haven't been exposed to this kind of material before. And then there's flashcards for NNAT. There's OLSAT verbal in here too, but where your focus would be on NNAT, all the NNAT questions that are in there. Another thing that we have on the website, it's right under on-demand classes and webinars, is that as I said, remember that we want you focusing where they might be weaker. So if you find that there's something that's really hard for your child, let's say nonverbal analogies, we have content on the site. We have webinars all about solving nonverbal analogies or patterning questions or serial reasoning questions, all the things that they're going to see on this test. So, watch those. Your child can watch them. You can watch them. Here's one on test taking mistakes. Remember, I was talking about that. That's important to make sure that your child's not making those mistakes. And we certainly have, test anxiety for some kids who need it, and strategies for taking this test. So there's a lot of material you can call on if you need help helping your child. And then we also make available to you, should you want it, we have tutoring, one-to-one tutoring, where we evaluate the child, we work on the weaknesses, maybe you work on the areas that are easier for them, they get homework. Kids really like it, they have a good time. Same with small group classes, which we're going to be, we begin lots of test prep classes in the fall, so look for those. But a lot of kids enjoy doing working on this with other kids their own age, so that's really the advantage there. These are just different ways that we can help you get your child ready for an important test. And then finally, I guess I just want to make a pitch for TestingMom, which of course I am the co-founder of TestingMom. So I'm totally biased about this, but I think it is the best value out there and the best site out there that to help you get your child ready. It was started by parents like me, and what we've been putting on it is all the things that we as parents wished we had access to when we were getting our kids ready for important tests. So that's really what we do at TestingMom. But certainly with TestingMom, you will never run out of questions. And if you ever need more, you just call us, because we can guide you to other places on the site where there's similar questions that your child can work with. We try to make it fun for your child. You buy one membership, all your kids can use it. One membership, all grade levels. So, you can back up and do those easier questions and work past your child's grade level if they can do it without frustration. We give you so much. We give you the online test prep. We give you something called Skill Building Academy, which will help you teach. We have like 30 plus learning programs that your child has access to just because they're members of TestingMom. We're an accredited program, and we are able to give you those learning programs. We have the tutoring, the videos on demand. You can call us anytime and we will answer your questions about the test, about getting ready. All of our people on the phones are experts on the test. You get discounts on tutoring and small group classes and consulting. And I guess I want to quickly end by just saying that no matter what happens, when you try to get your child ready for the NNAT or really any test, it's just never a waste of time for a parent to spend learning time with their child. And so, you can work with them, let us help you work with them if that's what you want. But kids actually really enjoy getting ready for this test in particular, because it really is a fun test for kids. It's almost like a game, some of these puzzles. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. And now you know all about the NNAT.